Hi, everyone, and welcome to Off the Record, the sports podcast of breaking news, hard opinions, and a little bit of gibber. I'm Andrew Webster, and joining me now is a legend of Australian journalism, Phil Buzz Rothfield. How are you, Buzz?
Hello, Webby. I'm fighting fit, thank you.
I can tell you look fighting fit too, actually.
Oh, well, you know, I've got a lunch on after this, and so I thought I'd put the appropriate attire on.
Well,
Look a bit like a rugby fan, I reckon.
That's touchy areas. We'll get into that later. What?
I'll tell you what I'm going to do next week. I'm going to wear my wallaby cap. I'm just starting to get into this British Lions tour.
Yeah, I can. You know,
you're going to have a crack at them later in this podcast.
I'm going to have a crack at you and them.
yeah.
All right. So coming up on the show today, Buzz has some exclusive breaking news on the Western Bears being on the verge of becoming the NRL's 18th team. We'll rip into the latest on the Lachlan Galvin story because God knows we haven't had enough stories about Lachlan Galvin in the last week or so. And in our very popular war story segment, Buzz, we're going to talk about the sunny afternoon in April 2010 when we were opening the fourth bottle of Pinot Grigio with Rebecca Wilson. And then the Storm salary cap scandal broke and we had to sober up very quickly. And that was a very long day, if you recall.
I can recall it. We're at Nick's Seafood Restaurant in Darling Harbour.
That's right.
Wow.
Oh, God, that was a day.
And I had a major blow-up with someone after that, but I'll keep it.
Look at that hook and tease.
Yeah.
So, Buzz, I just want to start off by saying thank you so much for finding time to come onto your own podcast this week, because I've seen you on many others in the last few days, including the buy round with James Graham, in which you said you're a different host to Webby, and he said, how so? And you go, serious and articulate. You dog shot me on other podcasts.
Jimmy Graham, Nathan Highmarsh pulled out, and they offered me a significant sum of money to do a one-off appearance. And, yeah, I went in and did it. What did I say about you? Didn't I rap you?
Well, there's a little clip just saying you're a different host. You're serious and articulate.
I said to Jimmy on that podcast, he's the smartest, uneducated man I've ever met in rugby league. He left school about 15 to play rugby league. His mum and dad
used to run a garage doors on the drink as a young kid.
Yeah, but he is an intelligent dude.
Oh, he's one of the really strong, you're right, serious and articulate voices in the game. You know?
Yeah.
I had a really soft spot for Jimmy. I always loved how I did a piece with him, an interview many, many years ago when he was at Canterbury, and he said, you know, I hate this unscripted reality that the NRL want to put on us. That's the term that he used. And what he meant by that was you can't be yourself. And he was just always himself. And I love athletes like that.
There's not many footballers in the comp who are themselves. And now and again, they come out of the woodwork and provide us and the punters with, you know, great content or quotes, or there's got to be a little bit more madness. I love madness. I love Spencer Lenu.
Well, I love the way you pronounce his surname.
Well, you pronounce it.
Lenu.
What did I say?
No, I don't know. Lenu.
Can you say the former Wallaby who plays for the Roosters?
Nawanga Natasi.
I can.
Go.
Nawanga Ngātawizi.
Ngātawizi, that's it.
Nawanga Ngātawizi.
I try. I can't talk normally. I'm a better writer than talker.
Took me 10 years to get Trebojevic right. But go on, you
I still
fool.
can't say judiciary properly.
Yeah.
Hey, and I also want to congratulate you on your NRL 360 appearance on Monday night.
What about it?
Particularly the bit where Reedy was in, like, you God, you're flogging poor old Brent Reid on that show. He's the whipping boy. Braith gives it to him, Gordy, then you, and you just brush him. He's in the middle of making a point, and you're there with your phone, tapping away.
And you claiming on socials that
ordering
I was
Chinese,
my chicken chow mein and spring rolls and can of Coke.
No,
I wasn't. Good. I was writing some notes.
I could tell.
From a text message.
I could tell. I saw you
Can
doing
we please get on with this podcast?
Let's go. Right, Champ and Chumps. Where's your champ?
My champ, rugby league fans. Last weekend, 218,833 punters turned up, the biggest round since 1998, 27 years.
Is that right?
Yes, it was, including the 65 at the Core Stadium. And we're all blowing up about referees. We're all blowing up about players taking dives and, high shots that aren't acted on, inconsistency in the bunker, referees making blunders. But you know what? We just keep turning up. And that is a fantastic achievement for the game. Biggest in 29 years or 27 years, what did I say? I'm all mixed up here now.
Let's just say a long time.
3 decades.
It's been quite a while.
In 3 decades. So I was a little bit shitty last night. I watched the start of AFL 360 and Gerard Whateley had a little bit of a crack at rugby league and talking about how far superior rugby league crowds are, AFL crowds are. And the point I want to make is Melbourne can be a pretty bleak and miserable city. I don't know if we've got many, Victorian listeners, but there is bugger all else to do in that town than go and watch a game of footy on the weekend.
That is not right, Buzz.
It is right. It's
there's
horrible.
There's the theatre, there's cafes, there's restaurants,
in Sydney,
races.
Mate. There's
in Melbourne, they cater to the sports fan far better. It's so much more central. The MCG and Marvel
stadiums
it cause a nightmare to get to.
It's not. You jump on a train, you're delivered to the door.
Yeah, when it gets there.
You're delivered to the door.
Go and tell all those Origin.
You go to San Francisco.
When was the last time you got a train to Acorn? I haven't been to San Francisco.
Sorry?
I have been to San Francisco.
Have you been to Levi's Stadium with the 49ers? How far out is it?
I get it. It's a long way. But it's also...
They fill it every week.
Yeah, but rugby league's done well with its crowds, Buzz, but let's not start beating our chest saying we're better than the AFL.
But we don't have room in the city here, in Moore Park, to have a 70,000-seat stadium. We
can't fill a 45,000-seat stadium.
It's not big enough. Anyway, this isn't about that. Thank you, rugby league fans. All-time record, and I was there. It was so good at Homebush the other day.
It was great. Great scenes.
And Melbourne is a crappy city.
Jesus.
There's nothing to do.
Well,
I'm not into theatre.
I tell you what, I can give you a tip. I've been to Melbourne many times and I've done plenty down there.
Why don't you move there?
None of which can be mentioned on a family podcast, like Off the Record. My champ is Oscar Piastri, who became the first Australian since 2010. Or who has become the first Australian since 2010 to lead the Formula One World Championships after winning the Saudi Arabia Grand Prix. He's won 3 of the last 5. He's just gone back-to-back for the first time. Even the great Max Verstappen rapped him and said, it's so good to see this guy doing as well as he is. He's managed by Mark Webber, who was the last Formula One World Champion that we had. And it's
how many we had, Webber? Alan Jones?
And I think that might be it. Jack Brabham?
Yeah.
Brabham, Alan Jones, and
I love these guys who reach the top in sports that are seriously global. Do you know what I mean? That everyone's involved.
Like rugby league.
Yeah.
The international sport of rugby league. Yeah. All right, you chump. What's your chump?
My chump is NRL players taking dives. And
you just said we get too bogged down in players diving.
Well, we do.
Okay.
We do. Did you see West Tigers and Parramatta the other day? And that hip drop penalty, which was ridiculous. And Kelma Tuilagi took a dive, pretended he was hurt. 10-all the score. Penalty gave Para all the momentum. And the victim of the dive, Tuilagi, scored the three plays later.
Yeah.
I can't stand play. And you know what happened later in the game? The Parramatta left winger, whose name escapes me, went to score in the corner. Mitchell Moses collected him high.
Yep.
That was a perfect dive opportunity to get him put in the sin bin, penalty try, all that drama, but he didn't dive.
I'm picking up what you're putting down, sister, because I agree. I hate the dive as well. It's when I was doing Ivan Cleary's book, we talked about this, and he talked about a game involving Ricky Stewart, in which he accused Ricky's Roosters players of taking dives, and of course all this drama between Ricky and Ivan. fast forward to just a couple of years ago, and Ricky, when he's coaching Canberra against the Roosters, called me and was blowing up about dives, about opposition players diving in games. But it goes beyond just that. It's all this like grabbing of the neck for crushes, and it's just there's something implicitly wrong with big forwards like pretending to have copped a whack across the face to get a penalty.
They're getting very minor bumps and lying down because of the NRL crackdown. And they deny it's a crackdown. They're only enforcing the rules that are there anyway. But I can't stand it, Webby.
Is there? But
it's gamesmanship, and I understand why it's happening.
Is there a argument for if you're going to go down and hold your neck or hold your head and claim you've been hit high that you should go for a HIA? Will that stop it?
Why not?
It'll stop it.
It will.
In a hurry. All right, my chump is I like bashing up on teenage boys, the 16-year-old Swans fan who threw a
Wasn't he younger than 16?
He was 16. A cardboard clapper.
Yeah,
he threw a cardboard clapper.
Yeah, wow.
Say that after 10 schooners. At Port Adelaide's Alia at the SCG on Sunday, the kid has been banned for 2 years and police have given him a hard, stern talking to. I hope his parents do the same.
Yes.
Kids, don't throw projectiles at players.
You love these kids. You did Reggie Rapid as a champ, and now you
for
do
hitting
it
a kid.
For assaulting. No, he didn't assault, but, he
pushed someone.
He had an altercation with a 12-year-old or something.
I've got a war on teenage kids.
But that was your highlight or your champ. You're all over the shop, Webby, seriously.
Well, coming from you, Buzz, I find that quite hilarious.
Yeah.
Righto. Let's get to the big news that you're going to break for us on. You heard it here first. No, let me just say it again. Righto, let's get to the big news of the Western Bears in our segment. You heard it here first, unless, of course, it doesn't happen. Buzz, what is the latest on the Western Bears? Is this finally about to happen?
I reckon I have got some really positive news for long-suffering North Sydney Bears fans. You know what? I reckon they are back, baby. I believe that the financials, which were the original issue between Roger Cook, the Premier of WA.
Not Peter Cook, the jockey?
No, not Peter Cook, the jockey, and Peter V'landys have all but been settled. I am told now it's ready to go.
Right. When are we getting
the Western Bears? I'm trying to find out when the next commission meeting's on, because despite what people think, that Peter V'landys is a one-man show running NRL, he has to put this through the commission. And what are you looking at me like that for?
No, it's a fair democracy at the Australian Rugby League Commission.
Well,
no, keep going.
Well, that's what I'm being told.
No, I get it.
It needs full commission sign-off.
I get that, Buzz. I'm taking the mickey.
The relationship with the clubs now is so strong because they're getting all that money through, the PNG and the 600 million from Albo, that they need to run it by the clubs first and ensure it's okay. Importantly, the two most powerful men in rugby league outside of Peter V'landys
and you and me
are Wayne Bennett and Nick Politis. I reckon they're more influential than Gus.
Oh,
they are both right behind the Perth venture, and that is what convinced Peter V'landys not to give up when it was looking a little bit shaky 6 weeks ago. So the next commission meeting, I think it'll be signed off on, and the Bears will be back, baby.
Well, as long as Wayne... Well, look, I'm not a massive fan of the idea. I like the idea of the Bears being reborn.
Negative. Why? How could you possibly bag the North Sydney Bears coming back?
I'm not bagging that. I just don't like the idea of a franchise in Perth. I've said all along that the NRL, if it wants to set up another team, that it really should concentrate on the western suburbs of Brisbane, because that's where the AFL is most active. I think it's missing the point. And as I wrote in my column in The Australian a few weeks ago, the AFL would rather a team in Perth than a than a team in the western suburbs of Brisbane because that is where it's most active. That's all I said, Buzz. That's all I said, mate.
Yeah.
That's
okay.
not me being negative.
No.
I'm actually thinking about what's great for the game of rugby league. Not because. Oh, hang on. Wayne Bennett says we should have a Perth team. We better have one.
You're getting.
We're going to coach. What else does Supercoach want?
You're getting the shits when I'm trying to have a grown-up debate. Now, what Western Australia does do is take us into a new market. Queensland, we've won. It's one and done. We've got
that is
the
bullshit.
Dolphins.
That's bullshit, Buzz.
We are. We own Brisbane.
Do you know what's? Own Brisbane. I'm telling you, rugby league does not own Brisbane.
Oh.
It doesn't, mate. It doesn't. It's starting to lose ground, and I've talked to many people on the ground out there. The AFL are so active in that corridor all the way through Ipswich and Rockhampton. And while rugby league stuffs around with Perth and PNG and, PVL wants to screw out all this taxpayer money to fund his football teams.
Well, it's not his money. It's the government have given it to him for a reason.
That's where the battleground is, and the AFL are winning it. There you go.
Oh, look, I so disagree. I think there is new corporate support that is unused in Perth.
Yeah,
and I do, and I know it failed last time, and I don't like games at Optus. I think it's it's just
cavernous.
It's a horrible place.
It's nefariously cavernous.
Yeah, it's an AFL ground, and once we get their rectangular field up to scratch, I think it's going to be a major success, and I think it in an AFL stronghold.
What's
like the Swans are in Sydney, like the Lions are in Brisbane.
I'll be dead before they before they start becoming a successful franchise.
Do I have to say sorry for having an opinion?
I'm not. I'm just disagreeing with you, Buzz. I don't disagree with you, Mal. You're on the ball as always. What's the money? Because that was the big sticking point.
I don't know what the money is. I don't have the finer detail. What happened?
I bet it's a lot less than PVL was looking for because he stuffed up the negotiations.
No. Well, look.
He did.
If he was looking, they were that far apart, it was going to fall over. I think they've both given a little bit. So it's nowhere near what the NRL wanted originally.
Yeah.
But there is junior investment, there's stadium investment, as far as I'm aware of, and I'm backing it to be successful.
That was the big thing. The NRL wanted a $200 million upgrade of HBF Park where they're going to play, and the West Australian government. See, this is the thing, Buzz. This is what PVL doesn't understand. I go and talk to sources of the WA government, which I have,
it's going to be a
and they were not prepared to tip in $200 million for a ground that had been upgraded for the Women's World Cup just a couple of years ago.
Yeah. That's fair enough. The money was over the top he was originally asked for, but I think this is a rugby league celebration in that tens and tens and tens of thousands of North Sydney Bears fans who gave away rugby league are going to have a team to follow again. And it's all right to say, no, they won't use North Sydney Oval, which they won't. They'll probably play a trial game there, maybe a premiership game against an out-of-town club. But all those fans who just so disgruntled when their team got kicked out, they're lifetime supporters. They will have a team to watch in Sydney. They'll go to Combank to watch them play Para, Penrith to and it's a celebration, Webby. That's the biggest.
I'm happy for the Bears.
Yeah, that is the biggest win here, more so than even entering a market where we don't have any footprint at all. But you know what? It's going to take 10 years before we know if it's worked.
I reckon add another 10. You know why? Because the West Coast Eagles are the most strongest club financially out of every football club in the country, and the Dockers aren't far behind. Mm. It's a big stronghold.
I've seen the West Coast Eagles annual report, and it even puts the Broncos to shame. Mm. And the Broncos are by far our most powerful club. And Collingwood do too.
Sure. I know.
Anyway, that's the yarn, Webby.
That's a good story, Buzz. May 7. You heard it here first, unless it doesn't happen.
That's if the commission meeting's on May 7.
I wouldn't be surprised. Won't they have a commission meeting at Magic Round next weekend?
I would say so.
Maybe that's where it gets.
But I don't think they'll be making any announcements that will be getting in the way of coverage of a weekend celebration of footy.
Of rugby league.
The great game of rugby league.
Okay, let's go to the news of this week. And like the Backstreet Boys, Lachie Galvin's back in the NRL.
Yes.
He's been picked for the team to play Cronulla on Sunday. And this is amid urgent mediation between the club and Lachlan Galvin's legal team. Yeah. What's your read on how this is all playing out, Buzz?
I think it's smart what the West Tigers have done, not as a legal manoeuvre, not as anything else, but the fact they've got to win football games. And, they're a better side with Lachlan Galvin there. They host the Cronulla Sharks at Leichhardt Oval Sunday afternoon. Action from the crowd is going to be most interesting. But he was missed at CommBank the other day, and it's a shame this story blew up because I thought they were heading towards the finals. The body language on the football, people will be watching the body language as much as where the football's going on Sunday afternoon. And if he does something to instigate a try or scores a try, is Luai going to go and jump over the top of him?
What are they going to do?
Yeah, do you know what I mean?
It's the Ben Barber situation at Canterbury. Remember that a few years ago? Remember how he he could hold his farewell in a phone box. That's how popular he was. Yeah, but he'd score tries and they wouldn't really acknowledge it.
No,
I hope that's not the case.
Yeah, no, so do I. Look, I think every player at that club. Well, I know every player wants to play finals football this year, and I think it's up to Luai and Abby Coruscant to grab hold of the young fella at training and say, look, we didn't agree with the manner in which it played out last week, but welcome back. Let's move forward. And that's what great leaders do. And Webby, you and me have had blues over the years. And I had to buy you a bottle of Henschke and give it to you at Grappa restaurant. Remember that time? To sort it out?
Yes.
See, and here we are, we mates. As I've said before, combat and collisions in rugby league just happen. They're internal and they're external. And
Come on, Buzz, this is a bit different. This is a teammates going to the coach and management saying we don't want to play with this guy. It's pretty heavy.
Yeah,
I can't really remember something that heavy for a while.
This is a team that got beaten by the Wooden Spoon favourites last week too. And they're not that stupid.
Well, just on that, if they ever it seems like he's going to Parramatta, doesn't it, Lachlan Galvin? That's where all roads seem to be leading. But if it was any doubt at all, the way that Mitchell Moses, an Isaac Moses client and relative, he was the best pitch you could have to Lachlan Galvin about why he should go to Parramatta, play alongside me and learn your craft. Because Mitchell has turned into just one of those elite halves. I made the case that Nico should have got the start ahead of him. For Origin a few years ago, and I'm happy to say I got that wrong because the way Mitchell Moses has evolved into the playmaker he is worth he's worth every cent to Parramatta.
Oh, absolutely.
And I can just it's exciting what he could do with Galvin there.
Yeah. What you got to remember is that game he played the other day. Did he play in the trials? I don't think he did. So it was first up since late last year when he was the Australian halfback. So
pretty good.
But that was an extraordinary performance after such a long let up.
It seems like what I've been saying all along before it even got out that this was always going to get legal, and I just have no doubt whatsoever that this is. Why have you just got your dictaphone out?
Because. I've
Do you want to quote me?
No, I don't want to quote you. But when I say something that's going to be in the Telegraph story, I want to record it. All right.
So when you quote yourself,
no.
That'll do me. You are going to quote yourself.
No, I'm not.
God,
what were we talking about?
What about your ego?
You've got me.
I just want to paint this for the listeners. Buzz has just got out his little shitty Sony dictaphone that's been obviously getting a good run for 40 years. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, turned on.
Yeah, it's to me, and this is I say this as someone who's got a great relationship with Richo. To me, with every passing day, it becomes clear that Isaac Moses outplayed Shane Richardson in this whole episode because he's going to get what he wants. He's going to
What's
get an
he
early
gonna get?
release. He'll get an
How
early
do you
release.
know? He's on the back page of the Telegraph saying he's not going anywhere.
Galvin will get a release. I reckon he'll play out this year, and Galvin will be released for next season, which I think was Isaac's play all along.
You reckon?
Oh, I think, despite everything that you talk about, and good on Richo for standing up to Isaac. I'm of the opinion that, and I remember when Richo said this to me last year, he said that he was negotiating separately with Lachlan Galvin's family because there was a lot of concern about whether Galvin's parents were happy with the Tigers. And as soon as I heard that, I thought as soon as I heard that he'd gone and spoken to the family independent of Isaac, I went, "There's no way Galvin will be there."
Yeah, look,
I don't think there was ever any
I've
chance of Galvin staying at that club.
I've seen this happen before, and I can give you an example: Daly, Cherry Evans, and Jake Trebojevic at Manly. Now there was talk they went a year without talking, and you could see it in the body language on the football field, but they, for the betterment of Manly, remain team solid. And I can remember after the Super League war, and the players on the ARL side who stayed loyal were filthy on the Super League players who got all the money. So when they came together in rep sides afterwards,
that's right,
there was a lot of uncomfortable people who were, in that room together, who didn't like each other, didn't like what happened. But you know what? To win Origin, they kissed and made up.
All right, what do you big at? Just go back. All right, just quickly, this is a bit of an aside. In the newsroom over the years, who didn't like each other?
Well, you and Josh Massoud.
I got on fine with Josh.
Did you?
I tolerated him.
Yeah.
We were fine. No, we were good.
Mate,
I've
had
him. Is it right that Chesterton and Chippy, did Chesterton and Chippy not talk to each other?
Oh, for a period, yeah. For a period. See what happened there.
God,
the Telegraph.
Our egos get the better of it.
But Ray Cheston was chief league writer on the Telegraph.
Right.
Peter Falingos was chief league writer on the Daily Mirror.
Oh, right, and they merged.
The papers merged.
Gotcha.
And they both wanted to be chief rugby league writers for the Telegraph Mirror and then the Telegraph. And Chippy got that job.
Gotcha.
It happens, Webby.
I get it.
You go and work for a bank, right? You go into the downtown, right? Mate, I'm sure there's bank employees, there's garbos, there's car salt, there's people who work in hospital. Not everyone gets on.
I don't like anyone I work with.
I don't.
Particularly myself.
Yeah.
I hear you.
What are we doing next?
Oh, very good. Move on.
Oh, I've got to keep rolling you on.
Oh, hey, well, you know what? If you want to get James Gray in any stage, if you think he's going to do a better job.
No, I'll say one thing to you. 49 years of media experience. I'll back myself over you on podcast content any day of the week.
Well, let's let the listeners out there just message in.
Yeah.
And
Buzz v. Webby.
Who's the least gibbery? Who's the most entertaining and interesting?
Oh, well, that's a silly question.
What?
Entertainment. Come on. What are we doing?
All right, Ange Postecoglou, there's a story out of the UK that regardless of what happens in the Europa League, that he's going to get flicked. What do you reckon? It's not. I don't like how it's been... It's very sad what's happened to Ange. It just shows you how brutal the Premier League is. But he started so well at Tottenham Hotspur, and now it's
what about in Scotland?
At Celtic, yeah.
Before.
I know, which is fine. But I mean, just it started so well at Tottenham, and then just the results this year haven't been there. And he's been very narky with fans and the media, and it's come later than I thought.
He's almost inflamed it, hasn't he, with his war with the fans and gestures from the sideline, and I've seen a couple. But look,
he's very fiery. It's always been his way, but he gets exceptionally fiery when he's under pressure. You could see when in his last days as Socceroos coach here.
It's a far bigger business than NRL, and look at the job security in NRL coach. And look, I can understand Ange, despite his record, failure is just totally unacceptable at a massive London club like Spurs are. The investment that stadium there and look, I think he's a wonderful coach, but the results aren't there. The results are not there. And you don't think, what's the tournament they're playing in? UEFA Cup?
No, the Europa Cup.
Yeah, right.
He's in the final of that. The first leg of that's on Friday, but it's what they lost to Nottingham on the just recently. and it's just what their performance in the APL has been terrible. They've had lots of injuries.
They're not
but
anywhere near relegation.
No, well, they were, but they're not now. Yeah, he's got injuries, but that can't be used as a total excuse for the way things have gone. And you reckon they're ruthless here, the Australian press. Imagine Fleet Street doesn't really exist anymore, but the tabloids have been after him.
Yeah.
But this story here comes out of the reputable Telegraph masthead in the UK.
Yeah, well, there you go.
And so I don't think it's a beat up. Righto. Ange.
I wonder where he goes next.
Sydney FC.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, he's got such an incredible record as a manager.
Yeah.
They just seem to roll on. There's so many great leagues in Europe that he'll probably start there. Or here's I'll just flow this major league, the major soccer league in the US. There's money there.
Yes.
Maybe that's where he'll go. All right, let's talk about an issue that seems to have fired up our listeners quite a lot. Your takedown. Buzz floated and said that it's an outrage that Lions tickets are too much, and the Rugby Union fraternity have completely lost their shit. Their shit.
Sorry for reporting the news.
Well, I know, but it was interpreted as an attack on the game, which I sort of found humorous for a week. But like some of the messages and the comments.
Do you have any of them?
I've sort of. But they've been quite harsh. All I'm going to say.
But why do you react to?
I'm not reacting to it.
Right.
I'm just saying. You
are. You seem like you're working yourself up.
I'm not working myself up at all.
You appear to be.
You're working me up, and I better throw my phone across this table at you, you dribbler.
Give it your best.
So I can tell you this. So that game out at so if the price wasn't too prohibitive, because they've sold 91% of tickets to the one at a call.
It's not what I said.
No, I know, Buzz. Yeah. I'm just saying, but they've sold. They've sold, and they're on track to sell 500,000 tickets to all the entire Lions tour here later this year. The highest attendance for any Lions series in the past was 380,000. So that's pretty good.
Yeah. And they've also got a second release of tickets out for a call, and I'm pleased to report that there are some nosebleed cheap seats for a kid can get in for 150 now.
That all?
Yeah, but that's in their second release, and they'll be sold in a matter of hours. But I do not take back from the fact that real people, when I say real people, working class people, cannot afford, in a cost of living crisis, to go and watch what is traditionally just a wonderful event. It happens every 12 years, and I'm happy for all the private school old boys and the lawyers and, investors. I'm not going to keep banging on in the suburbs they live in. But it is out of the reach of average wage people. And I think that's a shame, because Origin is a special event. You can get a ticket, as I've said, for $55. You can get in the grand final. Now, they're ordinary seats.
Well, they don't always sell out Origin.
Oh, they do?
Not in Sydney.
Well, yeah.
Anyway.
I don't want to fire him up again. As I said,
Well, I'll fire him up. Honestly, the glass jaw on some of these Rugby Union fans is ridiculous. Don't blame Buzz and I for the fact that your private school mates who have run rugby into the ground in the last 20 years haven't done a particularly good job. How's that?
No, well, they haven't done a good job.
I know. So don't blame us.
And I'll tell you something.
If we're just pointing out the ticket prices or just saying, it was pretty mild comment. So
See,
like, the
dirty.
way that
I'm
we're getting
still
launching
dirty.
into us, I mean, we're just a couple of humble league hacks doing our best on a humble podcast.
Webby, I'm still dirty on them for spending $6 million on Joseph Swalihi. I'm filthy on them. What that could have done for grassroots rugby, and that's why all the good kids now are coming and getting picked up by NRL scouts and are coming over to rugby league, because they have not invested in their own grassroots.
What about the marketing value of Joseph?
Do you think Joseph's selling all these seats for $279 at a call? Or do you think the British Lions are? You know the answer to that. The British Lions are. The Waratahs have, since Joseph's been here and played his 3.5, 4 games.
Calm down.
They haven't won a game.
Have a blood vessel pop.
No, they haven't won a game away from home.
I hear.
And what I'm saying is, if they invested properly in areas where they need growth, rather than pay one player all that money.
I reckon they will, Buzz. I talked to Alex Brown, is it's a former colleague of ours who's now
great bloke and a really sharp bloke to be working there. Very good.
Now head of comms there, and you could tell that he's done well, Brownie, because last week they announced a $38 million loss. And
they were doing handstands.
Well, it got painted in a really positive way, and it is like the Lions tour, and then they get $100 million for the World Cup in 2 years' time. Like it's going to be pretty special. That's gonna fill the coffers. There's some new broadcast deal, as Brownie was explaining to me. There's a big chance that they might be out of debt by the end of this year, which is a great result for Rugby Union. What?
Webby.
What?
The NRL make.
I know, we can't compare it to that, Buzz.
Yeah, but you're trying to make out as though they're going to be a major player in 2 years.
I'm not saying they're a major player at all. I'm just going to say they're on the up. I didn't say they're going to be a major player.
Well,
stop pitting the games against each other.
No.
That's what got us in trouble
you're saying
a few weeks ago.
You're saying they're on the way up.
No, I just hit...
They can't go down.
I'm just saying they've
been on the scrap heap, Webby. They almost went broke.
They're in a far better position than where they were a few years ago. They certainly are.
Okay, next. You've upset them. You're all over the shop. 1 minute you're supporting my argument.
No, I was defending what you've said about the ticket prices, but I'm not going to sit here and say that the game's at rock bottom, because it's not. It's certainly on an upward trajectory to where it was. With me?
Yeah. Whatever, mate. Just, can we move on?
Oh, I've got you rattled.
No, you haven't rattled me at all.
I have. I can tell.
You haven't.
All right, let's go to... flog you.
You won't.
I will.
I know your problem.
What?
You had dinner out last night and you drank some good red wine.
I did not.
And you're in a bad mood.
I had two drinks.
You're in a bad mood.
War stories.
Right.
Buzz, can you believe it's 15 years this week since the Storm salary cap scandal broke? 15 years.
Wow.
And do you remember where we were?
I do.
Set the scene for us.
Well, you, me, Rebecca Wilson, the late, great Rebecca Wilson. And was Ben English there?
He was. He was the sports editor of the Telegraph then.
Yeah, the great Ben English, who has kicked a few goals since then, Benny.
He's the editor.
Yes.
He's the boss.
Editor-in-chief.
Editor-in-chief.
Yes. Go Benji. We're at lunch at Nick's Seafood Restaurant in Darling Harbour. And we had 2 gigantic platters. And we were drinking some serious wine.
We were drinking with serious pace too, from memory.
Well, do you do it any other way?
Oh, God, seriously.
And then the phone rings.
You know what? You sledge me, and if I sledge you back, you just cannot cop it. Yeah, then what happened?
Then the phone rings. Story. Who rang us? John Brady?
No, I just think it broke. I can't remember.
I thought someone rang and said, get back to work. I think Rebecca had the connection through some powerful contacts to get back to work ASAP, because Melbourne Storm were about to be embroiled in the biggest salary cap scandal in the history of the game, probably bigger than the Bulldogs one.
Well, and that's exactly what happened. So I remember I'll pick up the story here. You guys went back to the office and Rebecca organised for me to get John Hardigan, the CEO of News Corp's company car, to take me to the press conference where Hardo was going to be addressing the media, because News were owned the Melbourne Storm. They were also half owners of the NRL at that time, alongside David Gallop. That's where Hardo and Gallop are going to do their presser. So I got Hardo's company car to get whisked up there to the press conference.
Well, I didn't know that at the time. I would have put that in Watch the Buzz if I'd known you had use.
And I got there and I said, as it started, they said, no, we're waiting on Hardo. He was late because I had his company's car. I had the CEO's car.
Oh, my goodness, I wish I'd known that.
And then Hardo sat down for the press conference and he's looking at me with a grin on his face.
Yeah.
And I've gone and put my tape recorder under my boss's nose, reeking of the white wine that I just drunk with his other employees at Nick's Seafood.
Wow. Yeah.
And anyway, and he knew what was going on. But I tell you what, we all sobered up very quickly because that was an enormous story, wasn't it?
It was a massive, one of the biggest stories in rugby league history. And, a lot of players were caught with two contracts. Greg Inglis, the boat in his garage that he was given, store gift cards and all sorts of things. Mate, I'll never forget it because we worked very hard for to and had a great coverage the next day, but I was still dirty. We were left that restaurant. It was such a nice day, so I went to the pub afterwards and I was filthy. And I'll tell you why I was filthy.
I remember you were filthy.
I think the story broke on the Wednesday. I had wind that there was problems with that Storm salary cap earlier in the week, Monday, and I rang John Brady and I rang Dave Gallup. And I said, guys, I'm hearing there's a shit fight over Storm's cap. And they fobbed me off. I can't remember, it's too far, and look, I have a lot of respect for both of them, what they did in rugby league over a long period of time. But I was so upset. I'm not going to say I was lied to, but I was sort of put off the trail a little bit with a response like, oh, look, we're always looking at club salary caps, and when it was much more serious than that. And I was really disappointed that when it did break, I didn't get some sort of heads up from them as I'd given them that. And I had words with Gallup that night in the pub. And I was not happy at all, Webby, but I still think, rather than missing this, I was still dirty at leaving lunch.
We're having a cracking day. You know what? Because I'd only started there.
You are actually very, very good company at lunch. I like having lunch with you.
Thanks, Buzz.
Much better company when I'm sitting opposite you in Darlinghurst here every Tuesday or Wednesday today is doing this podcast.
Oh, don't say that.
You are much better company socially.
I can't copy most times. You know what? I'm kidding. You know what? When I think about like what you just said there, and this is an insight for the listeners. It's so when you're onto a story and you've got some pretty strong information about what's happening, and if you go to a source or and try to verify it, and they say usually they will tell you, don't write it. We'll let you know when you can.
Yes.
Don't they? And that's obviously what should have happened in that case.
This was a particularly heavy situation because News Corp, correct me if I'm wrong, was still owning Melbourne. So
they own the Storm and they own half the NRL. So it was very tricky.
The company I was working for owned the club that was rorting and had directors on the board there who were oblivious to what Mr. Brian Waldron and others at Storm.
The chief rat, Brian Waldron.
Yeah, the chief rat. So that, again, made it a little bit more difficult, I would think, for David Gallup to, give me a full briefing on what was going down.
That's right. It's funny. So in the course of writing...
It cost me a Walkley.
Remember...
You won a Walkley?
No.
You should have. You're the best sports writer in Australia.
Thank you, Buzz.
You are.
Thank you, mate. You should have won one too. You've broken many yarns over the years too.
Yeah, I don't enter them.
You know what? Either do I.
No. A couple of my bosses have entered me for awards.
I said, we don't do this job for the awards. You do it for the money.
I do it for my readers.
Like my public. Yeah. It was funny. So it was really weird because I'd only been at News for a year or so, and it was weird when it seemed like upstairs were leaking or giving more information to the Herald in terms of not looking like they were feeding their own papers information. And I remember one day
that's how you get a favourable.
And I remember one day in the office because it went on for months. It was just the story for months and months and months throughout 2010, if you remember, Buzz. And everything was about the Storm. Every story was about the Storm. It just sort of suffocated the rest of the news cycle in rugby league. And I remember there was one day there where something I had tried to check out out with news and had been denied, and it popped up in the Herald. And I threw my toys out of the cot in the newsroom. I was filthy.
Really?
I was a lot more aggressive back then, Buzz. And I sat down, and all of a sudden my landline called, and it was John Hardigan, the CEO of the company. He goes, and Hardo's, I don't mind. Hardo's a great mate of mine. We've become very close since Beck and I were really close. So when Beck passed away, Hardo and I became even closer. And he said, Andrew, I understand you're not very happy about missing. About not getting that story. Look, we have to be seen to be independent, and we can't be seen to be feeding our paper. So I just want to assure you that there's no pressure at all from me or others about missing that story. So I said, good as gold, Hardo. I hung up the phone, went over to Ben English, said, I'm going to the pub for the rest of the day.
Oh, did you?
I know it's 10:30 in the morning, but I've just been given the tick of approval from the boss upstairs. So off you go. Any sort of fallouts, Buzz, since then from the Storm days of people you don't talk to?
Oh, Greg Inglis. I found out he was given a boat, and
the old speedboat story.
And paparazzi journalism was, that we used to do a little bit of it, whether it's right or wrong. And he left his garage door open one day, and we pinged his boat. I took a photo that he was given by the club. And he didn't talk to me until we were going to Las Vegas last year. We were both in business class going on that NRL jet.
Well,
and he said good day.
You don't usually fly any other way, though, do you?
He said good day. I had another
Man of
one.
the people that you are.
I've got a great war story on GI, but I'll keep it for next week. It's a really, really good war story.
And you said good day and you're okay, yeah?
Yeah, no, we're okay. We shook hands. And I find a lot of ex-players, takes a year or two if you've had some run-ins, they get a better understanding of what the media is about once they've retired.
Once they join the media, they understand what it's all about.
Yes.
Funny that. You know who I've only just started talking to?
Yeah.
Peter O'Sullivan.
Really?
Yeah, Sully did. He didn't like me.
Oh, well.
All I did was...
Not the first bloke in rugby league to take a particular disliking to you.
That's another pot shot.
Yeah,
You've been quite heavy today.
Well, that's true.
How did you get fucked?
That has to be cut.
Keep that in, Sam. I want that one in there, especially. No, but so Sully, and I get it. And I've actually said to Sully more recently, said, mate, if I can't remember what I wrote that upset you, but so remember when they branded all the rats?
Yeah, chief
Warden
rat.
was a chief rat.
Matt Hansen was deputy chief rat.
Yeah, there was like a rat 3, rat 4, and in the graphics on the in the paper, it had like Sully as one of the rats, and I just wrote the normal news story to it. I just reported what was said, and he has not listened to me since. He hasn't listened to me. He hasn't spoken to me since until more recently with the Dylan Brown stuff. We've had a chat, and we're all good.
Yeah, I'd speak not regularly, probably once every 6 months. Check in with Brian Waldron. He's running a sports merchandise company. He was doing a little bit for SEN for a while. He made a lot of mistakes there, but he paid the penalty, So there you go. What are we doing next?
Okay, fearless forecast. Sorry, do we need to wrap it up? Do you need to be somewhere?
No.
Yeah, sorry, Buzz. Yeah, sorry.
I've got a fearless forecast.
What do you got?
And I think it's going to be a major news story in the next coming up. I think Laurie Daly is going to have to drop a winning New South Wales State of Origin side. And they're a very hard series to win against Billy Slater. But Jake Trebojevic is not playing well enough to make that side. Even when Mads used him as a captain last year, he didn't got a lot of game time. The problem Laurie's got is now there is so much available in middle forwards. I've just jotted a few. Well, I think Isaiah will play lock.
Of course.
Which is Jake's manly position.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if he's the captain.
Yes.
If Jake's not.
Well, I was going to get to the captaincy, but I think Nathan Cleary should be captain. Or do co-captains like they do at Penrith. But the front rows, the middles where Jake plays, apart from having Isaiah Yeo at lock, and the South Sydney captain's out injured. Cameron Murray, he's out injured.
All right, so who
There's
are your
Payne
middles?
Haas.
Yeah.
Mitch Barnett.
Yeah.
Who's an Australian middle forward. There's Spencer Lainu. There's Daniel Saifiti. There's Utoika Manu, the big fellow at Melbourne Storm.
Mm.
And there's also Max King, who has come from nowhere this year at the Canterbury Bulldogs.
He's killing it.
I was talking to Paul Galvin over coffee the other day, and he said, mate, he can play Origin, Max King. So what I'm
built for it,
saying
doesn't he?
is I can't recall a winning State of Origin captain being dropped from a side. They're normally a pick and stick situation, but Laurie has promised us that this side will be picked on form.
I think you'd probably have to go way back to the 80s if it's any sort of...
A captain to be dropped.
Yeah, I can't even recall it.
And
Maybe
you know what?
did Turvey get dropped in? What happened in
Who?
86 when they won in 85? Was Turvey the captain the following year, or what, did he retire from international footy?
I'd have to look that up. But it's an interesting story because Jake is such a popular member of that team, and he was an integral part of us winning the series last year. But
was.
On form, and all those players I've just reeled off, you probably can't pick him.
Well, I'll have a surefire multi.
Am I right there?
You are. I struggle to pick him at the moment. That said, though, like, if he comes back and he plays better footy, it's Jake, and he's like, I think Jake's importance to that team in the last series went beyond what he did.
Absolutely, in the 20 minutes while he was on the park.
Exactly, but it's a bit more than that. Like he's an out and out leader. I'm a Gerbo fan. Anzac Day, our national day, and it's the day when Dragons fans walk a emotional tightrope as we take on the Roosters. Probably. You know what? I hate distractions when I watch the footy. I like just being there on my own.
I'm going to the Venues New South Wales suite.
Of course you are. The old nose in the trough.
Sorry for networking.
Yeah, good as gold. I'm going to go multi. Dragons to win.
Mm-hmm. There's a scoop. They're favourites, aren't they?
No, they're not.
Well, they should be.
They're $1.70. Roosters $1.70.
Right.
Dragons to win. Anytime try scorer Sloan, Val Holmes, and Nawanga Natasi.
Nawanga Natawisi.
And that's $15.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is this the one you do with your nephew?
We're not going too well, our multis.
Yeah.
They haven't been great. All right, so just before we wrap up, we have a special offer for listeners of Off the Record. You can get an annual subscription to Australia's best sports website, codesports.com.au, for $49.
Wow.
$49.
Is that annual?
That's for the year. So featuring Australia's best sports journalism, the Code Sports app is essential for every fan. So head to codesports.com.au/OTR, so Off the Record, OTR, to get a special discount on your annual Code Sports subscription for a whole year for $49. You know what? I'm going to cancel my old one, maybe do it myself.
I had to join the Australian when you started as a columnist. I've got that many paper subscriptions now. The only one I don't do is the Financial Review, the Rugby Union fans' paper of choice.
Have we pissed off any more? Just before we go, you can follow, subscribe, and engage with us on socials, particularly the Rugby Union fans, and you can find us at OTR Buzz Webby on Instagram. Please subscribe to us on YouTube at Off the Record Podcast. Now, we have a pretty big guest, our first guest on Off the Record next week. Just want to tease it. Make sure you tune in. We'll let you know closer to the date. And Buzz, because you think you're such a guru at podcasting, you know what? You can host. How's that? You're hosting. I'm done.
Oh, what a dummy spit.
No.
Oh, dear, you're a sook.
Go fuck
Seriously.
yourself.